So good morning to everybody from my behalf as well. Really great to be here, and I think it's what makes it great is of course that diversity and inclusion is a topic that I think everybody can participate in, and typically there are lots of discussions that I'm also eager to then participate with you here. What you can see here for context is our current strategy, the strategy slide, and our strategy is all about sustainable success with our customers. So basically we want to choose sustainability every day, and as a part of KONE sustainability we also are working on diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion is actually at the heart of KONE strategy as one element under sustainability, which is great. On the right hand side you can also see our 5 strategic targets as a company, and you can see that we also want to be the leader in sustainability, and this being a target, it's also something that our investors follow very closely. On the bottom right hand side you can see our current values. They are care, customer, collaboration and courage, and also under the care value we have diversity and inclusion as one element. So you can see that we are really working on diversity and inclusion as a key element of KONE sustainability, and I'm very happy about it, because when you are able to tie the topic directly to the organizational strategy, it is something that helps move the needle a lot. But maybe a fair question is that how did we get there, and what do we mean by diversity and inclusion overall? So thinking about KONE in particular, we are of course, I think many of you know here, participants, that we are a manufacturer of elevators, escalators and automatic doors and auto walks. And given our industry, we are typically a company full of engineers and particularly mechanical engineers. But then like we have, of course, we are in the path where many of our customers are as well. So there's lots of transformations happening. There's the disruption of technology, which is a great lever for us and an opportunity where we have been transforming KONE into a tech company offering solutions 24/7 that are actually connected by IoT, and obviously then everything's been helped analyzed by AI and optimized through that. And that means that our skills and capabilities really need to be diversified, and we believe that that working on diversity and inclusion will help us, because the reality is that you can't really diversify without actually also working heavily on the inclusion as well. So that's our background, and what we have wanted to do is to be very clear about our vision in diversity and inclusion, and you can see it here. So we understand that diversity is actually something that makes us unique. We are KONE through the 150 nationalities and different type of people we have working at KONE. So we are truly unique, but it is inclusion that makes us powerful. And at KONE, we really want to build an inclusive culture that not only values but also promotes diversity. And why we do this is to be innovative and connect us closer to our customers, but also the communities that we serve. And we believe that together we can make KONE a great place to work and cities better places to live. So that's our vision. And we wanted to make it very clear for everybody that these are the reasons why we are working with this topic at KONE. But we also wanted to be very clear about what do we actually mean by diversity and inclusion. So here you can see our diversity definition. It is a very broad one on purpose, mainly because when you talk about diversity, it's actually really quite hard to limit all the differences we have. And what we want to do in particular is to acknowledge that that it is important not just to think about the traditional demographics of diversity, but also particularly include diversity of thought, different perspectives, just to make sure that that we are able to be innovative, benefit from each other's ideas, and come up with great new solutions. But we can't really do that without inclusion. And here you can see our definition of inclusion. Putting it very simply, we really mean the employee experience. So how does it feel to be at work on a daily basis? How does it feel to collaborate with your colleagues and with your customers and partners as well? And we would like everybody to feel respected and valued, and to be able to come to work as themselves every day. So with the strong inclusion, we believe that we can fully benefit from diversity. So those are the definitions for us. We also wanted to kind of clarify a little bit more in practice as to what do we actually want to see and achieve through the diversity and inclusion. And here you can see our 4 key principles for diversity and inclusion. So the first one really is to achieve a working environment which is truly supportive and open, so that everybody can feel comfortable. We also want to very much focus on diversifying our teams as one of the principles, so that we can build high-performing and innovative teams through the diversity. We also want to make sure that everybody with different backgrounds, when we are diversifying KONE, can actually reach their full potential. This means that people need to have access to the opportunities. Everybody needs to have the opportunity to develop and grow with us. And finally, we understand that it's not always easy to get there. It could be that we encounter different type of learnings and challenges along the way. And there it is very important that for us to keep developing, everybody has to be able to speak up. So we are empowering everybody to raise any concerns that they may have when it comes to diversity, and particularly inclusion and the culture. So those are the kind of key elements of kind of diversity and inclusion. So the vision statement, the definitions, and then our principles. But you might then be wondering about the actual ambitions. So with all this, where are we heading towards? So we actually have set ourselves very ambitious targets. And here you can see the key ambitions on the left-hand side. So as the number 1 ambition, we want to start from the culture. So we really want to have an inclusive working culture that enables engagement and innovation. And it is a good question that how do we actually drive this? I mean, culture is, of course, the kind of like the way we work, the way we are, the way it feels to belong to a company, and in this case, KONE. So how do we make sure that the culture is more inclusive? And we believe that it does start from building awareness. And we have actually a lot of different initiatives around culture and strengthening inclusion. And actually one of the initiatives was to refresh our values about a year ago, making sure that we are actually including diversity and inclusion on purpose to the values, so that everybody kind of understands that these are the type of behaviors that we are expecting to see, particularly the inclusion, and we are ready to support everybody to get there. We have also actually been training our senior leaders this year heavily on quite an extensive learning journey about D&I, different elements there, and what can everybody do to be more inclusive. And we also launched this employee toolkit, a very practical guide helping everybody to become more inclusive, whether you're arranging meetings or meeting with your customers or collaborating with with colleagues, or whether you are recruiting or promoting, or you name it. So very practical guidebook. But it is a long journey, and it is important that we also try and measure our journey. And we actually just had our first attempt in that. We rolled out an inclusion survey, and we are just waiting to get the results soon. The second ambition for us is to become as diverse as our customers and the communities we serve. This is so that we can be relevant, so we can actually really relate to our customers and understand their needs and come up with better solutions. And of course, give back to the communities in a meaningful way. And here we actually have a lot of KPIs around the diversity when it comes to recruitment, the kind of different type of skills and competencies that we are acquiring. Of course, we're wanting to improve the gender balance, and we also want to see more diversity in the nationalities in the global business units and functions. So we of course have lots of nationalities working in different locations, but what actually really is important for us is that, particularly here in the headquarters in Espoo, where a lot of the decisions are being made in the leadership teams about our portfolio products and strategy, and we there have enough cultural diversity. We also want to become a responsible global citizen, which means that we want to ensure that we extend D&I outside of KONE to our partners and suppliers, but also make sure that we have mechanisms for voluntary work for our employees, as well as that we identify causes that KONE wants to globally support. So we have very stretched ambitions and lots of KPIs around them. And a good question is still that, okay, how are we really truly getting there? So here you can see our 6 focus areas of our D&I strategy. And really we looked at and explored KONE D&I strategy, D&I maturity locally in our countries. Actually, in 53 of our countries, we went ahead and assessed the D&I maturity at the local level to see that where are we and what all can we actually do to improve the maturity, so that we're not only working on the topic globally, but also locally. And through this maturity assessment, we actually identified key areas to work on, and then build the strategy that you see here based on that. So it is important that D&I is not just a HR activity. It has to be embedded into the strategy, and the responsibility has to be spread across the organization. It also has to be a business imperative. And actually, that it is for KONE currently. It is already something that our customers expect and from us. And even when it comes to, for instance, bidding, it can be that we are partly getting scored by our D&I policies and practices. So it is become increasingly important also for our customers, and we need to be able to make a step change there. It is important that leadership is entirely engaged. Everybody's commitment has to be there. Of course, with this, we are hoping that we can reach all the way to all the levels of employees. We have to have talent practices that are fair and transparent. And to drive that and enable that, we also need to have data-based decision-making capability. And we have actually created a lot of dashboards and visibility to our leaders and managers, so they can understand that whenever they are making a talent decision, how will that affect our diversity? We have started to transparently communicate about D&I, both internally and externally. And also finally, in the category of the global responsible citizen, we have started to work on the supplier diversity, but also started to identify the causes that KONE wants to support. And also we're currently investigating the mechanisms for the volunteer work. So heavy ambitions or stretched ambitions with a lot of KPIs, and then finally this D&I strategy with the six focus areas. Then maybe I think it's important to talk about the link between diversity and inclusion and upskilling, because at the end of the day, that's actually one of our kind of key ambitions and actually challenges at KONE currently as well, when it comes to our strategy and making sure that we are successful in implementing it. And when we think about upskilling, D&I definitely plays a key part. So I wanted to share you this slide from Mercer. I have just proudly copied it from them, but since they're a partner of ours, I'm sure they don't mind. So I think this is a nice slide kind of summarizing the situations with the skills landscape across the different organizations globally. So it's interesting to see that currently 78% of organizations report that they are facing disruption, and 99% of the organizations are planning a transformation. And this is very true for KONE as well. We are a company that actually has been successfully transforming for more than 110 years, but it's been much more rapid lately. And as it says here in the slide, that the #1 transformation challenge actually is the lack of workforce capabilities and skills gap. I think it is very true for us as well. So we have come to the conclusion that our transformation challenge is not so much linked with technology. Technology is something that we are good at. Technology is something that we know, but it is really about the mindsets. It's also about the skills and competencies to be able to adapt quickly and to keep developing solutions that help us stay competitive and help bring value to our customers who are also transforming and whose expectations keep changing all the time. And you can see here that a lot of jobs, so 85 million jobs, may be displaced by 25. This is not a long time scale, but 97 million new roles may emerge through these transformations, and that's something that we see as well. So while we have some jobs which may be kind of less relevant for us in the future, we definitely see a lot of new jobs emerging. And we really need to make sure that we are getting the upskilling part right. So for KONE, we have entered this upskilling era, where we actually have a program focused on upskilling KONE throughout actually the company. And what we have done is that we've identified critical competence areas that we really need to upskill ourselves in. And we have then also adopted a role-based approach for this. So we have wanted to look into our volume roles, we call them volume roles. So roles where we have a lot of employees in, which are changing, and where we have the requirements to change. And we have looked into it in two ways. What are the foundational things that everybody needs to learn? And what are the role-based skills specifically where we need to upskill people? And we have a couple of levers for this. So of course, learning and development is one of the really big initiatives for upskilling for us, but also certainly recruitment as well. So acquiring talent with new competencies that can then help us upskill maybe even faster in some cases than through learning and development. I also wanted to just maybe finish here with a couple of practical points about the upskilling and the link to diversity and inclusion in particular. So like said before, diversity and inclusion for us is really about staying competitive in many ways, so that we can ensure that each and one of our employees feel valued and respected, and the culture is inclusive and through that they stay engaged and they stay with us, and they actually typically do a good job with the customers. But when it comes to the upskilling in particular, diversity and inclusion is definitely a competitive edge. Why? Well, when we use recruitment as a vehicle for upskilling, as one of the vehicles, we have acknowledged that diversity attracts diverse candidates. So the more diversity people are able to see, the more attracted they also are to join. And we have a lot of candidates who are actually asking us very thorough questions about the diversity and the kind of teams that they would be joining before they actually go ahead and join us. And we also understand that we can't benefit from diversity. People are not willing to share out of the box ideas and challenge each other unless the inclusion is there. So inclusion is really needed for psychological safety, for empowerment, and also the innovation to really truly thrive. And some practical implications here that I also wanted to then share with you before we move to your questions and comments. What we have really needed to do to make sure that we are diversifying KONE through talent acquisition is to heavily review the hiring criteria. So how can we actually make sure that we are not narrowing the talent pool and the candidate pools by our own criteria? If we add elevator, escalator industry, for instance, as a requirement, typically the pool is very narrow. So we go on the other way around. We want to make sure that we have a target around hiring from outside of our industry. And that's a heavy focus area for us. But also when it comes to degrees, we have come to the conclusion that we might have to let go some of the requirements that we've had around master's degrees, even bachelor degrees, because when it comes to particularly some technical skills, there's a lot of people who take up on informal trainings. They upskill themselves, they become very competent. They might not have any degrees. And if we limit ourselves to hooking up our criteria to degrees, it could be that, again, we lose a lot of talents. So we started to investigate this requirement in particular. We've started to review the job postings. Who do they actually attract? We've needed to change the wording quite a lot. And we are not quite there yet with AI, but we have acknowledged that when it comes to the recruitment technology and, even the learning technology, the AI can really help us when it comes to skills. So if I'm asking you that, how many skills do you have? And I would ask you to identify them, you might give me 10. If I ask from the AI, it might give me 40. So that's an interesting finding, and I think technology can definitely help us there. But of course, it's not only about talent acquisition, it's very much about our own existing employees. And for everybody to stay in the game, stay relevant, and have lifelong careers, it is very important that we help everybody in this upskilling so that it is easy for people to acquire new skills and they can move on with their careers and they can continue to grow and develop with us. There has to be a learning culture that thrives. People need to have the opportunity to learn continuously, not formally and not only here and there, but all the time. And one practical way to do this is actually simply pairing up employees. So we have done this where we've had junior employees paired up with the more senior ones, and the other way around, because there's certainly a lot that more people with more longer experience and seniority can learn from people who have just entered the company. So that's what I wanted to particularly share about KONE and our diversity and inclusion journey, if you like, and how we use diversity and inclusion as one vehicle for upskilling KONE.